Hello, good day to one and all. This is Miss A. Krishna Sundar, Assistant Professor, Department of English, KAHM Unity Women's College, Mancheri. Today, we are going to discuss the poem Yangtze, written by Sarah Howe. Now, this poem is actually a part of the paper Literature in 21st Century. So, before we get into the poem, let's have a detailed look at the biographical details of the author. Now, Sarah Howe is a British Chinese poet and she was born in the year 1983 at Hong Kong. Her father is from UK and her mother is from China. So, we can understand that she has got a mixed hybrid kind of identity. She is an English literature student and she published her very first collection of poetry, the debut collection, in the year 2015, and the title of the poetry collection is Loop of Jade. Now, this poetry collection won the T.S. Eliot Prize, which is one of the most prestigious prizes given, and she became a very popular writer soon after winning this prize. When we look at the life history of this author, she lived in China till she was 7 and then her family moved to UK. She completed her studies from Christ College, Cambridge and completed her PhD too from the very same place. She's also interested in visual art forms apart from poetry. She founded an online poetry journal and the name of this journal is Prac Crit. Currently, she is working as a lecturer in poetry at King's College, London. So let's move on to the poem. The title of the poem is Yangtze, and what does this mean? Now, Yangtze is actually a river in China. Now, this is a concluding poem in the collection Loop of Jade. Now, the poem is based on the return visit to the mainland of China and Hong Kong. So, the author is actually living in London. After many decades, she returns to China, and it is this experience which has been recorded by the writer. So, in a way, this is just like a memoir, a journey through the Chinese river. Because when the poet comes back, she finds a lot of changes in China, a lot of developments, a lot of changes, which is in a way even pertaining to environmental damage. So, in short, this is a travelogue. This is a physical journey as well as a psychological journey that the author undertakes. And moreover, you can experience nostalgic feelings from the part of the writer. At the same time, she is directing towards environmental damage caused by the progress of science and technology. So it is a voice of a Chinese inheritance that we can experience here. And moreover, the entire poem is in the tone of an elegy. You know what an elegy is? An elegy is a poem which actually mourns the death of someone, the loss of somebody. Now, here it is not something connected with a person, but she is actually referring to her home country, that is China, how China has changed, and the ecological crisis or environmental damage that happened to China because of these developments. So, this is a very simple poem, it is descriptive in nature, and it echoes a kind of silence, and there is a sense of unsaid within the poem. There are certain lines where the poet is just using some ellipsis, sometimes a hyphen, which is actually talking about many things without really talking. So, this is a representation of a traveling mind, and on the other side, she is also directing us towards China's march towards modernity. So, moving on to the title, Yangtze, I'm clearly not very sure if the pronunciation is accurate. This is a Chinese river. It is the longest river in Asia, and this is the third longest in the world. Now, another important thing here is that this river is very closely connected with the history, culture, and economy of China. A lot of trade relationships actually happened here, and some historical studies suggest that Yangtze River had witnessed a very solid civilization 27,000 years before. So, this is actually a meeting point of history, culture, and economy of China. And the term means, Yangtze means long river. So, I just want to take you towards some beautiful pictures of this Yangtze River. So, you can see it's very scenic, it's beautiful, and many sides are completely covered by mountains and forests. So here is the entire poem. If you want to read the poem, you can pause and read the entire poem. So moving on to the first part of the poem. So this is how the poet begins. The moon glimmers in the brown channel. Strands of mist wrap the mountain sides crowded with firs. So it's a very descriptive kind of stanza. The moon glimmers. The moon is shining. Glimmers means shining. The moon is shining. So the very first line is giving us an indication that the time should be late evening. It is not daytime, it is not morning, it is late evening time. The moon is shining in the brown channel. So maybe things are not very clear as you can see them in a daylight. So there is a brown color that is reflected in the water. So the moon glimmers, the moon is shining, and maybe the reflection of this moon is seen in the brown colored water. So it is not brown colored actually, but it is night time. So therefore, there are so many other colors which are in fact reflected in the water. So the poem, the first stanza actually begins like a haiku. We all know that haiku had its origin from Japan. So it is not something which came from China, but still it looks like very crispy lines containing heavy meaning. Strands of mist wrap the mountain sides crowded with firs. So there is one more thing which we have to note because very recently a hydroelectric power station was constructed on this Yangtze River. Now, this is considered as one of the largest hydroelectric stations in the world. So, there is also a dam in the name of Three Gorges Dam, which is constructed here. So, all these things can be considered as a part of the development happening in China. But we never think about the consequences of this development. So the poet is actually looking at the development part, but at the same time, she is also analyzing the consequences of these kind of developments. So this initial stanza is actually regarding the beauty of the river. So strands of mist wrap the mountain sides. So you can see mountain sides, the river is actually protected by mountains on all sides. So the mist is actually wrapping the mountainside just like the left hand side picture. And this is crowded with firs. Now, fir is actually an evergreen coniferous tree. You can see the picture, it is something similar to this. Now, just imagine a forest which is completely, thickly packed with firs. So, that's a beautiful sight. Now, this is also creating an ecological balance, and that is why we say deforestation is really creating global warming. So, here it's a beautiful sight. The moon is shining in the brown channel. The mountains are wrapped by mist, and on all sides, the forest regions are crowded with fir trees. Declining cliffs sink beneath vast water. So it's just like the cliffs are getting immersed in water by remote paths, twisting pines. So again, it's a beautiful sight. Beautiful cliffs sinking in water. Remote parts, because as I told you, there are lots of forest regions which are surrounding this river. So, remote paths, maybe meandering kind of paths, and twisting pines. So, you can see the pine. Now, if you go to cold climate places like Ooty, Kodaikanal, and all, you can see this pine trees, lots of pine trees huddled together, which is actually a beautiful sight. Far downstream, two sides of a half built bridge fail to meet. So, after describing this beautiful landscape, now the poet is coming to the bridge, which is actually a human construction. Till now, she was talking about the natural things, and now she is going to talk about something that is constructed by human beings. Far downstream, so if you go to the other end of the river, two sides of a half built bridge. So, there is a bridge which is under construction, half-built bridge fail to meet. So one thing that we have to understand here is that the poet is actually taking a journey through the river. Now this can be a real physical journey. At the same time, it can also be a psychological journey of the author. So she mentions that there is a half-built bridge on this river and they fail to meet. Now, see, this was a poem written in 2015, so we do not know whether the bridge was under construction at that time, whether the construction is over now. So, we don't have clues about these things, but still, what the poet is suggesting is that the bridge is incomplete. The bridge is incomplete, and therefore, the two sides fail to meet. Now, two sides failing to meet is not just about the bridge. On a metaphorical level, she's actually talking about the two sides, tradition and modernity. Because China is slowly moving from tradition towards modernity and development. So, is the country really able to blend these two things? So the question is left to the audience. So she's actually talking about that through the image of the bridge. Tradition and modernity, they don't have a common meeting point. Our crude boat chugging poems to Chongqing. Our crude boat. So now it is very clear that the poet is traveling. She is using a crude boat, maybe an old boat, and she is actually taking a journey through this Yangtze River. A crude boat chugging. Now, chugging is actually a colloquial term, a very colloquial kind of usage, which means drink in gulps by making sound. When you drink something by making sound, you call it chugging. So, the boat is actually moving just like it is gulping water. So, that is a chugging sound and points to Chongqing. Now, Chongqing is a small city in China which is actually located near Yangtze River. So, the boat is actually heading towards this place. So, this is a municipality in China. As someone I now forget once said, journeying is hard. So, now she says she is quoting someone else's line. So she is actually referring to a Chinese poet, Li Po. So please remember the name. She is quoting from a Chinese poet, and the name of the poet is Li Po. And he has written a line, hard is the journey. So she's actually quoting that line and she says, journeying is hard. So this journey can be an individual journey, it can be a real physical journey through Yangtze River, it can be a psychological journey, or in a broader sense, it can be the journey of life, which happens in everyone's life. So, moving on, my face greets the evening breeze. I listen. So, now it is very clear it is evening time. My face greets the evening breeze and I listen. And see, you can find a hyphen here because she wants to communicate something, but there is a pause. She is not able to do that. And then the next line, the dream of a place. So maybe her mind is filled with nostalgic moments. Her mind is filled with memories. A cormorant dives by trembling light. So, a cormorant, as you can see the picture, that is a bird, an aquatic bird. A cormorant dives by trembling light, which means it comes fluttering its wings, but trembling means in a shivering, in a fearful pattern. So there is something that the cormorant is not comfortable with. So maybe the new developments, maybe the march towards modernity. Now you can see when all the forest regions are completely turned out into dry areas for construction, this is actually destroying the habitats of many animals and creatures. So, here, sometimes the river would have been affected by pollution, many industries would have come. You can see there is a hydroelectric station which is built now. There is construction work going on because a bridge is being built. So, maybe all these things will create or destroy create a problem for these birds and animals, and they will destroy their habitat. So, this cormorant is not really comfortable. By trembling light from the white islet of a star, the sound of ripples. Now, islet is actually a small ring like structure. You can see the picture here. This is actually used to fix draperies, curtains, etc. So she says, from the white islet of a star, the sound of ripples. So maybe there are stars. Remember, we talked about moon in the first stanza. So now she is discussing the stars which can be seen and the white light reflected by the star. That is what she calls as white islet. So just like a drop of light, the sound of ripples, water flowing, the ripple sound is heard. Now you can see there are two things which are juxtaposed here. One is the memory part and the other one is her pain. Now, memories will offer a pleasure for the poet, but at the same time, she is also pained because of the high tech science and technology and progress and even development happening in these places. So, moving on, the next part is about a fisherman. So the poet is continuing her journey, her physical journey. Now, what happens? Let's see. A fisherman skirting shore in his high prowed skiff. So there is a fisherman who's actually traveling in a high prowed skiff. Now, skiff is a flat open boat. You can see the picture here. It's a very ordinary kind of boat which is used by ordinary fishermen. So, a fisherman is actually rowing the boat, crossing bamboo oars. You know what an oar is? You can see the picture here. Bamboo oars, because it is using the oars that they move forward in a boat. So a fisherman is rowing the boat and he is moving, comes up with a jolt. So suddenly there is a jerk. The boat is jerking, and then you can see there is a hyphen again. So something has hit the boat. Now it's not a very sturdy boat, it's a flat open boat, but something has hit it suddenly. So there is a sudden jolt, a movement. Nets catch not fish. So he's a fisherman, so he has come with a fishing net. He is using the net, but he cannot catch any fish. But the wizened finger of a submerged branch. So what is happening here? Instead of fish, what comes into his net is a wizened finger of a submerged branch, which means wizened finger means a wrinkled like branch of a tree. So someone has cut down some trees and put it inside the river. Now this is submerged, and when the fisherman is traveling with his boat, this wrinkled branch is shaking the boat. So maybe that's a huge branch. We do not know. So one indication here is that there is deforestation happening. There is someone who's cutting the trees out, maybe from the nearby forest regions, and someone is dumping the trunks and the branches of these trees in this water. For below, a sunken valley persists. Again, there is a hyphen. So she says, there is a valley which is lying under water. Now, valleys will actually remain on land. So, how can a valley remain underwater? So, what she means here is that almost all the trees and plants in the forest region are cut down. And these cut down trees are actually dumped into this Yangtze River. So if you look at the bottom level of the river, there are lots of cut down trees rotting underneath. So now see, the problem here is that when trees are cut down, the forest regions are completely destroyed. And when these cut down trees are pushed into this water area, even the river is getting polluted. So both regions are getting polluted, and people call this development. But see, she is not speaking anything against. She is not criticizing development, but the pauses, the silence, the hyphens, they are actually telling us the pain that she is going through. Slick, bare trunks, furred and wafting fronds have water for sky. So, what is seen underneath? Sleek, bare trunks. Trunk is the main part of the tree. Furred and wafting fronds, which means the rotting leaves of the branches. They are moving in a very smooth way. You can see when leaves are pushed into water, they become very soft in nature. Their texture changes, their pattern changes, their color changes. So they look like smooth moving particles. So furred and wafting fronds have water for sky. So what happens? These branches, leaves, trunks, all these are submerged in the river. And they have water for sky. And what is the use of water to these trunks and branches? Will it help? No. Trees and branches can enjoy water only when they are planted on the land. They are cut down and pushed into Yangtze River, so there is no point even if they are submerged in water. That water is not going to benefit them. Ghost forest. So this is what she calls it. The nearby forest region, ghost forest. Why? They are known as ghost forests because there are no trees. There are no trees present in this area. More than that, she is also referring to another place in China. Now, this is known as Fengdu, which is actually a ghost city. Now, this is actually one of the most important tourist attractions in China. A lot of people visit this place because there are lots of monuments, figurines, sculptures, etc., related with these ghosts. So, most of the stories are taken from Buddhism, Confucianism, Taoism, etc. So, this is a tourist attraction place. Maybe she is referring to this Fengdu, we do not know. So she says ghost forest, roots rot deep in the hill. So what is happening? Those trees which are cut down and pushed into the river, their roots are remaining in the forest region where buried rock is still dry and they don't get water. So see the irony. The cut down root in the forest regions, they are not getting water. At the same time, the cut down trees are pushed into the river on the other side. So both the land and the water channels, both of them are destroyed. Environmental damage is happening because of this modernization or industrialization or development, whatever you call it. Now, coming to the last stanza, windows film, doors drift open. So now she is talking about the different small houses located in this place. Now there is one more point which we have to connect here in this stanza. We talked about a fisherman, right? Now the fisherman comes, he tries to use his net, but he cannot catch fish. So there is another question coming here, the question of livelihood, because a number of fishermen used to live in this place and used to catch fish every day for their daily survival. And these people are not getting fish from this area. So, this is again a very direct consequence of environmental damage, because there is a hydroelectric power station which has come, there is construction going on, more industries are coming, so there is definitely pollution happening in this area. So automatically something happens to the aquatic life in this place, and that is one reason why the fisherman is not able to catch fish. So this is affecting the livelihood of the people. Now, when a lot of constructions and industrialization happens in one locality, people cannot survive in that place. People start getting displaced. So people are displaced even in this locality. Windows film. Now she's talking about the windows of the houses here. Now, a window is a direct access to what happens inside a family, right? When you look through the window of a house, you can understand what kind of a family it is. So, windows film, so windows will speak about the people living inside. Doors drift open in the empty concrete shells of houses. So, what she finds now is just the empty concrete shells of houses. Maybe the poet is not finding people inside these houses. So, what we have to understand here is that most of the people might have left the place because people are displaced. They don't want to live in a polluted area. The second thing, their livelihood is actually severed, cut off from them. So, shells of houses, towns that once held hundreds of thousands. So, remember, once this place, Yangtze River bank, was a hub of civilization, even 27,000 years before. So, thousands of people, thousands of families lived in this locality, but unfortunately, the number of people living in this locality now is comparatively very less because people are moving away and slowly filling with what? What is it they fill with? So now this is a question that she is asking the audience because most of these houses are empty. Now, one or two houses are still remaining with people inside, but what do these people fill their houses with? Because their survival livelihood is lost. They cannot survive in that polluted area. It's completely modernized. Traditional skills are not valued. In such a situation, is their happiness remaining in their life? Can they lead a happy life? So, this is a question that she is asking. What is it they fill with? So, what is it they fill in their house? So, this answer is left to the audience. So, this is actually a direct reference towards environment damage. Now, she repeats this is a refrain. Someone I know now forget once said journeying is hard. So, she's quoting Li Po, the Chinese poet again. The moon glimmers in the brown channel. So once again, she comes back to the initial stanza lines and she winds up in a positive note. So, this is in fact a psychological journey of the poet, the journey from tradition to modernity. Now, some of the main themes related with the poem: environmental destruction, industrialization, pollution, human greediness, memory, experience, pain, mixture of pain and pleasure. So, with this, we come to the end of this session. So, thank you very much for your patient listening. In case if you've got any more queries, any suggestions, or if you require any more assistance, please do not hesitate to connect with me. So, thank you very much. Thank you.